So here I am with Jeannette Aster, one of the partners in crime with her husband, Howard Aster, here at La Roche in the middle of the beautiful Burgundy region of France. So, yes, we get here and we go, yeah, it's unmistakable why one comes to a place like this. It is absolutely stunning, this setting. I remember when, back in 2000, that summer, we were climbing that mountain in Slovakia, and you made mention about buying a farm. And I went, oh, okay, that's an idea. After the career that you've had, this wonderful, illustrious career from all over the world, what brought you to the point of this farm? What was the impetus with you and Howard?
Well, it started about 10 years before that, when we came to Burgundy just by pure accident. I was looking for a pied-à-terre to have a European address, because a great deal of my career at that time was in Europe. So I needed an address, and I needed a place where I could leave stuff so I wouldn't have to be carting it back and forth. And so in 1991, we came to, we found by complete accident a place in Burgundy, and we chose France because our kids were in French immersion at the time, and it would be great to spend their holidays in France. So we were here for a little while and just driving around the countryside. Well, you see it, it's just so beautiful. And I just totally fell in love with the region. And then soon after that, I was working in Glyndebourne. And the kind of stuffy place, but artistically it's on a wonderfully high level, and it was absolutely perfect working conditions. You just worked very hard. It was very intensive in the rehearsal period, and then you went outside on a break and a little lamb would cross your path, or a duck, and you would see the cows grazing in the fields, and all that stress would just disappear. And this little light went on in my head and said, oh my God, perfect working conditions for any artist. And so while tootling around the countryside in Burgundy and seeing all these chateaus in ruins all over the place, and I said to Howard, wouldn't it be interesting to see what one of these chateaus would cost? And it would be wonderful to have a place where artists could come and work in a completely isolated, beautiful, inspiring environment for just even a short period of time, but just to be able to escape from the everyday drudgeries of life, or even working professionals who have to juggle a million things at home. You know, there's always a phone call, there's always a dentist appointment, there's always kids to pick up, there's always something that disturbs your complete and utter devotion to or emergence into your art. And so wouldn't it be wonderful to, in this beautiful surroundings of Burgundy, so quiet, best kept secret in the world.
Absolutely.
Because tourists are all in the wine area around Beaune. They're not around here, and there's so much history and interesting chateaus and churches, and the medieval quality of this place.
Well, absolutely, and the resonance, I feel the resonance of, even before that, the Romans. There's still so much evidence, especially here at La Roche.
Yes.
And the pagan aspect, we talk, you know, we all did walks and talks and discussing the healing waters of the springs of La Roche and how that was part of the pagan existence and then the Christian existence.
Oh, yes.
And there's a chapel just across the street from the house.
16th
century, next to the springs where people did pilgrimages.
And there's a sacrificial mound where the pagans used to do their sacrifices to the goddess Isis, hence the name La Roche, the rock of Isis. And that's that sacrificial mound.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
And it's still there, right across from your window.
Yes, it is. It is. So for anybody who's really into cultural tourism and to really go to the end of the road, this is one of those gems of places.
Well, so anyway, you know, after tootling around the countryside, we just, by sheer accident, came upon this place. We looked at some chateaux, but money pits, complete money pits, and you just don't get the kind of space that you have here. And suddenly, somebody showed us this place and said, maybe this could work for your project. And it was love at first sight. And so...
Yes.
Here we are.
But it wasn't without labor, because this, the rehearsal hall, one of the two barns in the property, I'm sure did not come looking like this.
No, it did not. In fact, some bitter history to this place also is that in 1944, it was burnt to the ground by the Germans, who felt that the farmer here did not cooperate enough and give them all their produce and things. So he was executed, and then they burned the farm down. So this building where we are right now was very much damaged. Everything else was completely destroyed. This building remained standing. It was the stable, horses' stable, and the pigsties. Downstairs and upstairs over here was where they stored some hay for the animals. And so it was in very, very bad shape. The rocks were very, very fragile. Yes. So the farmer who took over from and rebuilt the farm, he blocked out, he took up all the windows and doors just to keep the walls standing, and you can still see outside maybe the mortar that they tried to kind of patch things up with.
Absolutely.
But when we moved in here, the stables were still there downstairs, and the pigsties were still there downstairs, and this was just slat floors with hay on it. Yeah. So
and as we see now, it's a beautifully finished gallery, rehearsal recital space. We did our concert here last night. This lovely piano and this beautiful exhibit of Inuit art. Now,
Bring Home Canada.
Bring Home Canada, yes. So, bringing this passion project to fruition and dragging your husband into this project.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy, but he is so absolutely part of what's going on here. Absolutely.
No, could never have done it without him.
And beyond the lyric programs as well.
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, it's open to all arts disciplines, all cultural disciplines, in fact, so that we have writers and photographers and art painters and dancers and filmmakers and all sorts of that, and cooks, culinary arts and wine. People coming, and so it's a really diverse
it is,
place.
yes. So with this, there was the creation of Centre International de Rencontres Culturelles, and was it at the same time that l'Académie de la Roche was started, or was that something that came after?
It came after. The place we called the place La Roche-Dix Domaine des Arts, and we had to establish an official body that could be recognized and that could maybe be able to access some funding and subsidies, and even just on a local level, but that it had some official standing. And in France, it's the capital of association, and so we established this association of Centre International de Rencontres Culturelles, and people become members in support of the association. It's a totally voluntary organization, not-for-profit organization, which supports the activities of what we do here. Once we had to do this right away, and then once the buildings were ready to be able to function as an academy, Then we established Académie de la Roche, which is actually
Which facilitates the
Canadian,
different programs.
which, yes,
Okay.
and it's actually a Canadian company.
Wonderful, wonderful, yeah. So throughout our time knowing each other, I've heard a lot about the different programs, and with envy I was going, yeah, that's so far away. But yes, it was a long time to get over here, but my God, it's been so worth the journey. In what we've done particularly, you run two different lyric programs. The one that we just did was The Body Sings, and that is a very different program to what you run later in the summer, which is Opera.CONNECTIONS Europe.
Yeah.
So let's talk first a little bit about the first program, The Body Sings. What is your mission with that program?
Well, it's been my mission all my life to work with singers and of any level. Just people, not only singers but also musicians. It's a technique of being able to use your entire self, because your entire self is your performance tool. And so it's been a mission all my life to help artists, performing artists, discover the possibilities and the tools of the trade that help you in the expression of what you need to do. And as a singer, the body is
the instrument.
And this little thing is only part of it. I mean, it's an essential part of it, but it shouldn't take all the responsibility of performing. Everything has to support it. Yes. And that's what the but.
Yeah, so that would be basically the grassroots of singing at that point.
Yes.
Basically building that foundation on that very holistic and, I believe, true approach. Because through the experience of the 2 weeks, yes, we work the muscles, but it's really finding that balance between the mind, the heart, and muscle and bone.
Exactly, and the breathing and all that kind of stuff.
And then exercising it to a performance.
Absolutely, yes, and all the exercises actually do have a function in the performance process.
Absolutely.
But I don't do it alone. This kind of work can't be done just in limbo, and so I always work with a team of experts and vocal clinicians who keep, because I tend to try to get as much out as possible. It's possible that it becomes overblown, and therefore a vocal clinician is there to keep it on track so that it aligns, that the physical demands align with what the voice can support, and to keep it healthy. Yes. And then, of course, you need a really solid musical staff to be able to infuse that musicality and support from a musical point of view. So that's the team for The Body Sings.
Yes. Now, with the other program, and understandably so, I understand this is part of your vocation, because your career as a stage director, well, first you studied dance, then you did voice, if I'm not mistaken, at McGill, and then went to London for opera production, and there you got into stage direction. At the beginning of your career, you worked in developing on like the apprentice programs with several opera companies, and then got into running a company yourself with Opera Lyra, which was, if I'm not mistaken, also the creation of the Young Artist program there. And then you went all over the world as a freelance. So you've got this truly this global experience from A to Z in the business, and really working at the top of the food chain of the game, I guess, one could say.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the second program, Opera Connections Europe.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, the program came about because I've been working with singers all this time and helping them prepare for competitions and auditions and that sort of thing. And I realized that so many singers, particularly those who are interested in going to Europe, spend a fortune. They just spend so much money on these audition tours and have not a clue about where they're going and what they're auditioning for, what kind. It's so diverse. Europe is so diverse. North America is much more stable in the way that, it functions in a certain way. There are larger companies, there are smaller companies, but basically the system works the same way. In Europe, it's so diverse everywhere. Even in Germany, which is the largest market in the world for singers, they function in so many different ways, and there's so many different levels of companies, and A-level companies are not necessarily the best companies. They're the biggest orchestra. An A company is the biggest orchestra. Could be a lousy opera house, but it's got a big orchestra, therefore it's an A company. And there's D companies that do absolutely fantastic work. So they have to know these things, and they don't. And they go and they waste so much money. They go on an audition tour. Sometimes they're auditioning for the wardrobe lady and the stage door guy, because nobody else in the house is available, but they've already booked an audition, so
we need somebody in the house
out there to
represent. Yes.
Yes, you don't know. You just don't know those things, and there's so many good singers, especially in Canada, of course. But there's so many good singers, and they're so busy, and they should be really busy trying to get their voice together, their languages together. There's so many things that they have to think about that by the time they're ready to go, they don't have the information. So a few colleagues got together and we thought, why not offer a kind of seminar type of program, which is very different. It's not a training program anymore. We assume that the people that are coming to our program, all of whom have to audition, and it's a careful selection of people we think have a chance to really be introduced to that system. So we decided that we would hold this kind of seminar 10 days with a maximum, I should say, of 8 people, so that we could give very, very intense attention to each person and their needs, to prepare them for their auditions. We know the faculty is made up of European opera professionals for the most part, with once in a while we bring in some North Americans so that you could get
a balance of feedback.
An understanding of how different the systems are. And but the specialists that come in are coaches that work in opera houses, who work regularly with the ensembles in the opera houses and know what the exigence, the expectations are in an European opera house. So we have coaches, we have conductors, because unless you know how to work with a conductor, you could have done 65 opera school productions with piano, and sometimes also with an orchestra, or excerpts with an orchestra. It's not the same thing as learning a role through a conductor's eyes and hands. And then we have auditions every other day, just mock auditions.
Yes.
However, the people who are listening to these auditions are the people who are in a position to hire you.
Yes.
They're not here to hire you, but they're here to talk to you. They spend 2 or 3. How often do you get to spend 2 or 3 days with an agent, or with a casting director, or with an intendant of an opera company?
Never. Pretty
Just
much.
casually walking around in the garden, having lunch, having dinner, and having a private session
Absolutely.
with them after they have heard your audition. First, they come in and they talk about their profession from their point of view, what they do, how they function, and what they're looking for. In each case, conductor, agents from Germany, agents from other parts of Europe, they don't function the same way. Germany has a different system from Spain or England or France, for that
Yes,
matter.
I've noticed you've consistently had a representation from New York, sometimes London, but from Paris, from Amsterdam, Berlin, and Vienna.
Yes, yes. I mean, we work with a variety of different
Yes.
agencies, and sometimes they're available during our program, sometimes they're not.
Yes.
So we have a choice of partners, I would call them, that we could call upon. And this year we're having, it's an international agency that has offices and independent agents all under an umbrella agency. So they have representatives in Spain, in England, in Moscow, in Berlin, in Amsterdam, in all the major places, so that sometimes we get somebody from German. We always get a German agent because we have to. That's the big market, and we have a French agent who from Paris, who has been coming here now for 8 years, I think, helping us out. And then either a British agent or an American agent or a Dutch, this German agency will send their Dutch or Spanish or Italian representative to the course.
To the course.
Yeah, and they will explain what they do, and then they hear you. You get a video of your audition, and then a private session, 1 hour private session with that agent, who will give you their feedback alone, privately, and then you have all the time in the world after that, because they're here for a few days, to talk to them about the system, about what you recommend, and just to...
And evolve your audition as you go through the workshops.
Yes. The other thing is that all the faculty people that come here are come with the understanding that they don't have to hire them. They're not here to look for talent. They're here to open up the world to the talent.
Yeah, it's
to
not
know
an
what
organized
to do.
showcase. Yeah.
No, it's not a showcase at all. However, they take on the responsibility of mentorship, so that once they give you their business card, you can call them anytime. I'm coming to Europe. I'm coming on a European audition tour. These are my dates. Where should I go to? And
to whom?
could you? Yes. And they are happy to say, okay, I can call this theater for you, without any kind of contractual obligation. They don't need to do that. They'll just do that. They'll help open doors. They may not get you. They won't get you a job.
Yes.
That's your
Absolutely.
that's your
Absolutely.
responsibility. But they can help open doors. And people like myself, or the conductor, or some of the coaches who work in the different opera houses, we're happy to continue that mentorship. You can call us anytime for advice, for a coaching if you happen to be in town, or we happen to be in town. or just to have somebody to talk with if you have a problem, or a question about what to do next. So we have a responsibility, not for life.
No.
Maybe not for life, but
Reasonably.
But reasonably, we yes, I'm still absolutely in contact. We started this program 6 years ago, and every single one of the participants has been in constant contact with many of our faculty and myself, of course.
I think that's such a gift to any singer who passes the audition and has the opportunity to come here, because from my experience, there's not been that level. There has been mentorship. I've enjoyed mentorship, but that's been on a very personal level, working with different teachers and coaches, and that was from the impetus of us too. But to have a program that is structured, that this is basically the entrance into it, the mentorship is there if the merit is there. And that is a huge opportunity that I hope you guys understand what that means, because it doesn't happen anywhere, or very much, unless you've gone through an apprentice program where that network, a smart singer develops that network, and there is certain mentorship, because that is part of the apprentice programs. But what we're dealing with here is post-apprentice program, for the most part. Because it's for people who are ready for an international career.
Yes, there have been cases where there have been young singers who have tremendous talent, who finish their education, basic education, and have been able to find places in young artists. This is a European directed program, and particularly for North Americans who don't really know what the young artist programs are. Yes, there are a million lists of them, and on all these internet sites. But we did have a number of people who came from our program, and on the recommendation of some of the people on our faculty, they were able to get into a young artist, a Zurich young artist program. We had somebody in Zurich, we had somebody in London, we had somebody go to there's another German in Munich, young artist program. So they do. If they're young and they're promising but not yet ready, and in fact 2 of them were recommendations from agents who said, better do this first, and then and then you'll be fine.
Polish that stone.
Yeah, polish that stone. We've also had people who who were also too young, who had to finish their masters or something, and at 2 of them at Yale, but one was a very, very promising young tenor, and so the British agent was the one who said, I'm watching this kid, and she did. She watched him and was constantly in touch with him, and managed to recommend him for a Cenerentola. This was, I don't know, it was in 2010 maybe, Cenerentola in 2014, because sometimes they do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, he would be ready to knock the socks off everybody in 2014. And so he was contracted in 2012, end of 2012 for 2014, having been very young. He was 21, I think, at the time.
Wow.
When he was here. Yeah.
Oh.
So it happens,
Yeah.
It happens.
Work hard, singers. Yeah. Work hard. The due diligence of not just the business, it's the artistry. the technicality, the artistry, because really you have to come with all the boxes being checked.
Yes, exactly. And so what we do is we're the final checkbox in terms of there's no actual training, but there is that fine-tuning of repertoire, or sometimes in their presentation, or sometimes just little things that just make all the difference in the performance or the audition. Or
Absolutely,
whatever.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So with the experience of these years running this program, what is the most common misconception that you're discovering with the singers that do show up? So that whoever's watching this can sort of look at that.
Common misconception.
Because you had mentioned about how the one of the common roads and common mistakes is just coming to Europe and just doing this big audition tour.
Yes,
Yeah.
without actually knowing what the expectations are from the different houses. I mean, I got a German audition, and it turns out that this particular German opera house does completely off-the-wall productions most of the time. You really have to know what kind of place you're going to and you're auditioning for. And sometimes it's not about having the most beautiful and the biggest voice. That's the other thing, is that most of the opera houses in Europe are much smaller.
Yes.
Unless you're in Paris, or even Covent Garden is small
Yeah,
compared to most of the North American houses.
Absolutely.
But there are very few really big opera houses where you really have to belt. But so the tastes are completely different. I don't know what the misconceptions are. There probably are that, if I sing a really good audition, I'm bound to get something. And Europe is a different kind of a market because it isn't a one. The other thing is I can get hired for a role as a guest. I would like to see, I have a life in North America, or I have a life wherever I live, and then I just want to come and sing a role in a European opera house. Not. You have to you have to be a star to be able to be invited for a production. Otherwise, you are in an ensemble, and you have to be able to commit the time
For the season.
for this.
Or seasons.
Well, sometimes not your choice.
Yeah.
Actually, the opera house, the way they operate is that they have. They take you on a year trial, and then after 10 months, they let you know whether they would like to accept you into the program or not. Not the program, but into the company. And even then, it's a 2-year commitment. After your trial period is a 2-year commitment, and after that, who knows? You can move on. You can move on, or you can't move on. But it's you have to understand that where you're going is making a commitment, and not be invited for a production, and certainly not as a leading role right away, unless it's a small opera house, and then they try you out, and they try you out on 1 or 2 productions. The other thing is that you don't just do a production. Now, most of them keep a production in the repertoire for a long time, and you could have 2 performances in September, 3 performances in November, another 6 in March. It's a Christmas show. Then you have a lot at Christmas time, and then and you have to hang out all that time
And pay the bills.
And the fees are not great. The fees you have to pay your dues in Europe, and you have to work your way up the the salary scale. It's all of those things that you need to be aware of, and you need to understand before you decide that you're going to spend all this money on an audition tour.
That is something that we do not hear about, certainly in Canada. When we go through school, Europe is that dream destination, anywhere in Europe, for a young singer. The dreams are big, as we all know. And we've all been through them, successfully or not. We've all been through those dreams.
Sure, and you have to have them.
Well,
because
this life is too difficult if you don't have them.
You need to know where you're heading.
And leap fearlessly.
Yeah.
So, from what I understand, from what you're saying, the biggest thing, once beyond working your artistry, developing your instrument, is truly doing the research, into the culture of opera in each country, the repertoire of each house, past, present, and future, style of production, and how that individual company works.
Yes, and also look who's singing where, in terms of look at 8 different Carmens in different cities and see who's being cast in those, to understand, according to you, what, where you fit in.
Absolutely.
What kind of, the tastes of those companies as well.
Absolutely. Well, so that's Opera Connections
Europe, and the name speaks for itself.
Absolutely.
It's principally, it's a program to help you make the connections you need to get to the next step.
Yes. Well, as Jeannette and I often do, we can gab for days.
Yeah.
But for the point of this video, let's leave that at here.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time in this.
My
and
pleasure.
Thank you so much for creating this program in this beautiful, beautiful environment, and may you have a long and joyful life doing it here.
Well, thank you very much, Stuart. It's a bit of a folly, but you have to be crazy to be in this business anyway,
Absolutely, and you've got the partner in crime to do it with.
Yes, I do. How lucky I am.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, Stuart.